Welcome to the Real Estate Investing Club. This is the place everyday real estate investors gather to share their best stories, biggest insights, and favorite tactics to grow a portfolio of cash flowing properties in today's market. Here's your host, Gabe Peterson.
All right. Welcome back to another episode of the Real Estate Investing Club. Today we have Aaron Kreymer with us from the other side of the United States over there in Baltimore. Aaron is a new investor. I love having new investors' perspectives because, I know a lot of you guys out there are just getting started. So I think this will be a good episode. Aaron, thank you very much for hopping on the show.
Pleasure to be here, Gabe. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I told you before we got on here, we like to start with stories. We like to hear how people got into real estate. You're not new into real estate, but you're new into the investing side. So why don't you take us back to the beginning? How did you get started in real estate in the first place?
Sure, absolutely. So, like every investor has a story, how they got started. And that's, the beauty of it. Everybody comes from a different direction. I always love learning about, other people's stories. So my story goes back not too far back to the beginning of 2021. But really has its roots, beyond that. Before 2021, I had interest in, doing something outside of the 9 to 5. I had money saved up, and I was investing in some stocks and other things. But I really had an interest to do more, to be more active in it. And I knew friends and family, friends, and other people that were involved in real estate in some capacity, and I wanted to get involved in that. But like any new investor, you don't know how to do that, where to get started, what are you supposed to do to even break into that space. And so it was a long process for me to gain that confidence to actually, try it out. And so reading different books and, expanding my knowledge of just business and other things were a great help. Eventually, I kind of got tired of waiting and gained some of the confidence I needed. And so at the beginning of 2021, I jumped right into it. I first focused on single family, fix and flips, which is in my area, which is in Baltimore, which is like many investors, it's easy, it's accessible, it's easy to start with financially usually. And so that's where I got started, thinking that, it would be fantastic and, quick growth and, I'd be off to the races. And did a couple of properties, can't say that they were fantastic, but the learning experience was great. And as that kind of went on, I started to realize that I really need to focus on something bigger, something better, something more efficient, which led me to finding multifamily commercial real estate, which is now about 8 months old, getting into that space. And so, it's a journey that continues. It's still a pretty young journey, but really, really happy with what I've learned, what I've experienced so far.
Yeah, man. No, 2021, that's just like last year. I love that you're already jumping onto the commercial side. I always suggest, we all get started. I got started in wholesales and in single family. I feel like most people get started on the single family side, but there's no real need unless you really like single family. You can start right into the commercial side. And you realize that fairly quickly. 8 months, looks like you were 4 months in when you started the jump. So
yeah,
that's great.
I'm happy that, sometimes people get, whatever they're investing in, let's say it's single family in this case, they get involved. And it could be what they really believe in and, what they started out believing in. And if it doesn't go well, it could be hard sometimes to transition to something new, due to you sticking to your guns and wanting to make it work out. And so I was happy that it was easy for me to let go of it and to be, this is just not what I thought it was. And so I'm moving on. I had enough of this.
Yeah.
So it's part of that process of knowing when to let go and focusing on the right things.
Yep. Yeah. And even once you get into the commercial side, at least for my story, there were so many pivots even after I made that transition, because I feel like the goal is just to focus on real estate and then allow yourself to evolve. Once you get there, you'll start in single family, you'll go to, wholesales, flips, maybe you're a realtor, who knows? And then you go over to the commercial side and just allow yourself to kind of flow with a little bit, as much focus as you can muster. Because if you do jump around too much, then things get kind of hairy. So
for
It's good
sure.
that you made it over here. You mentioned, you had to build up that confidence, and at a point, you were just tired of waiting. What was the biggest fear that was kind of keeping you from making that leap?
I think it's, what everybody fears, the uncertainty, not knowing enough. What do I need to know? What are the pitfalls? And in my case, with single family, since it was a smaller property, I financed it myself. So it's a big check I wrote. It's a lot of money that goes out the door in one whiff, and all scary things. You just have no idea what you're getting into. So you know it's just a matter of not knowing. If somebody who has experience, let's say they went to school or trade school, whatever it is, and they know about the industry, so getting started is not a big deal. They know what they're getting into. With real estate, it's like a black hole. You just have no idea. So
It's a
it's that
good
fear of
description.
the unknown.
Yep. Yep, absolutely. You also mentioned, you said there were family and friends that were in real estate. Did they help you along the journey at all, or were you kind of brute forcing it in there?
I was, I was kind of on my own. I did have some people I asked some questions to here and there, but mostly just wanted to figure it out, which could be good or bad. I'm not sure, on my own. So I had a few people I had some ideas or questions to bounce off of, which was good. But mostly it was kind of by trial and error.
Trial and error. That is the classic way to learn. I love it.
Yeah, yeah.
So take us back to the first deal you did. You said it was a flip. Kind of just, paint us a picture of how that went, and then, what you did from there.
Sure. So, as beginning of 2021 is when it really got started. And I started looking at some properties, because I was planning on financing it myself. I didn't have, unlimited, wallet. So I had a certain criteria. I was looking at smaller, property.
What was your
And I looked
purchase
at
price?
purchase price was actually, it was a condo. So it was $38,000.
Wow. So you were under 100 that
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
needed to be able to buy. Okay. This is great.
No. So my cap was probably like 50 to 60,
Okay.
which is under $100,000, and so I managed to find something for 38, which actually I think was like 20% below listed price or whatever it was.
Okay.
And so it was small. It was really small, but I was comfortable with that because it was so small, and so the risk is less. Now, what I learned was that the less risk is the less upside,
Yeah.
really, and that's really how it works. And so
And
I
there's
bought.
actually the smaller, sorry to jump in on your
No,
story there, but what I've found as I've, gone through my journey is that the smaller deals actually have more risk, even though there's less money involved because there's less cash flow. And so when you buy, I bought a self-storage facility, it was 64 units, a really small facility. And it was the cap rate was like 20 something percent. So I said, no way is this a bad deal. What I didn't realize is that because it's such a small facility, the cash flow, you can kind of get held up on that cash flow. If it was a big facility and I bought it at an 8 cap, it would be a better deal than that, or a safer deal than the smaller facilities. So I jumped into your story. I'm going to let you keep going. I just wanted to
No, but that's
put that
very
out there.
true. There's a lot of truth to that. Numbers are important, but you have to know what the numbers represent. Those are all very important things. So I bought the property, and because it was a condo, which was also good. I didn't have to worry about structural problems. It was so it was a lot easier for me to swallow that pill, because it was so much smaller. And so got a contractor in there, rehabbed it. It was very hands on for me. I was involved in purchasing the material and designing and this and that. And eventually we were ready to put it on the market. And because it was so small, I realized, it was harder to market because I think it was a 1 bedroom. And so, you have to find the right person for that. And so it sat for a little bit, and we did line up one buyer, whose financing fell through, and my margins were pretty low. And so when that buyer fell through, I then had to, because I was paying condo fees and other things, and it ended up wiping out my profit. I ended up finding a buyer the next month and a half, whatever it was, but because of that gap, because of that, that buyer that fell through,
Holding costs.
yeah, well, exactly. It fell, the profit fell, but I lost a little bit of money on it, but I really look at it as money I spent on well-earned education, and you cannot learn things like that anywhere else, no matter where you go. And so I look at it in a positive light, which I think is something you have to do in all the, ups, specifically downs in this industry. And it was great to just get under my belt, and what I've learned is really, more than what I've spent in that loss.
Yep. Yeah, the education was definitely worth it. And while I do, always suggest people start big, I like that you started at such a small deal. 38,000. That's a very, very small deal. Just because a lot of people, they have it in their mind, that they're afraid of big numbers, and so they do need to start at a small deal, and so they think they can't find anything under 500,000 here in Seattle. Prices are skyrocketed. So they think they just can't do it because the price points are so high, but you can find really small deals and just cut your teeth on it like you did. If it does go south, you're not going to lose a ton of money, but you are going to get that education. So that's great that you made it through. You got the education and you kept going after that. How did you transition from single family to multifamily once you did get a few deals under your belt?
Sure. Yeah. So it was kind of that, like I mentioned earlier, it was that, thought process where I kind of realized, when I started, I envisioned it going a certain way, growing a certain speed, going down a certain path, and doing the first deal and the second deal. I was just, the whole time I'm looking at different deals and underwriting different deals and kind of looking at different areas, market, this and that. And I'm just like, I started to realize that it just was not just going where I wanted to go, just not scalable. Efficiency was just low. I'm like, this is just not working out how I thought it was going to be. And, I started out on this journey, not just for the fun of it. I really have goals in mind, to use real estate as a vehicle to really create, cash flow and grow money, grow your wealth. And I really realized that single family space is just not cutting it. And so I started to look at something. I started to kind of think about what could be different, what could be bigger. Now, I had worked in property management a whole while back, so I was like aware of the multifamily space and other sectors of real estate, and I kind of just fell into multifamily. I try to be active on LinkedIn, getting more and more active as the days and weeks go by, but really noticed some people on there who were doing some really great things in that space, and just talk to a couple of them, see what it was about. And that was probably about a year ago now, or maybe more. And I thought to myself that, multifamily seems like something a lot more interesting and it has a lot more potential. So that idea sat for a little bit. And really at the beginning of this year, so now, going back 7-8 months now, I really wanted to focus on it and kind of grow my knowledge of that space. And so I really started to heavily network like crazy. And so I spent, months just, finding people on LinkedIn, and Zoom calls, phone calls. I mean, I can't even tell you how many people I've spoken to. It's got to be like 100 plus people.
Yeah. It takes more than you think. It takes more than once you start, you're like, I can call 10 people and I'll get it done. But no, multiply by 10, and that's the number you need to hit.
Yeah, it's a lot of people, and it's tiring. Like it's I'm like kind of the middle, extrovert, introvert. I can be outgoing, you can also be quiet. So it's a struggle to push to just constantly hop on calls, phone calls, Zoom calls, introduce yourself, say the same story, ask questions, listen. And it was very tiring, but the results were fantastic. I mean, it's not apparent right away, but over time, it's really, really apparent. And so, I've created some just great relationships, people I know, that I consider friends now, people that I can ask questions to, people that I want to invest in, people that I trust. And so that was really the catalyst to push things forward. And so, talking to people, meeting people. I just recently in July went to a multifamily conference, which was the first one I went to in person, met some of those people I've met virtually in person, met some new people. And so the networking aspect, people sometimes ask, okay, you network, you talk to people, so what? What does it do for you? But it really builds a foundation, builds a base of people who are in that space that you want to be like them, you want to ask them questions, you want to, get to that success level. And so that's really what it really entailed to really get started.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's so much more to networking than getting deals done, in my opinion. People they can underestimate how beneficial it can be to you. And just having your head in the same space as people that are doing the same thing as you is so valuable. Just in my own motivation, I've found, And you just don't realize it until you start to actually get out there and talk to people, like you did. 100 plus calls you made, started networking, started getting in the same mindset as other investors, can really move you forward.
Yeah.
All right. So you got into multifamily. You've closed a deal, or have you not closed a deal yet?
So I've gotten in on the LP side, on the passive side. As I started to network, talk to people, and learn about the space. I literally didn't know a thing. I didn't know the difference between 506B or 506C. I didn't know anything. So as I started to learn kind of the crucial things you need to know, I asked myself, how can I get involved? And so, being on in an active role as a GP or in a JV is hard to do from the get-go unless you come from the world of finance, or maybe you are already a broker in commercial
Finance.
Yeah, whatever it is. So if you have that background, okay, maybe you can jump in right away. But I perhaps didn't have that background, or maybe confidence level, goes back to the same thing. And so I kind of identified an LP opportunity would be best to get started, to get in, to get in with a team, review deals, ask questions. And so that's what I did. I was able to look at multiple deals. I talked to different operators, found a team that I was, very comfortable with, that seemed to have a good deal, and invested with them. And it was a great learning experience, to just kind of get your feet wet, but in a actually, participative sort of role where you can really, invest and use your money to work for you.
Yep.
And so that's where I started.
Nice.
And the goal now is to further that, and to get more active.
Yep. No, I love it. Starting out as an LP on a deal, I feel like is a great first step on the commercial side. You're not going to be making the decisions, but you are going to kind of learn through osmosis. You're going to see what they are doing, what these experienced investors are doing. You're going to, see the steps they're taking along the path to get those great returns. So I think what you're doing is it's a great path. I know I'm sure you're going to be a GP at some point in the future here. Speaking of the future, what are your next steps? What's your plan going forward? Before we continue on with today's guest, I want to tell you guys about a community I'm launching on School to help investors like yourself grow your own portfolio. In this community, you'll get access to all the docs I use, all the systems I've built, everything I've used to grow my own portfolio, as well as instructions and guidance on how to get out there and find great deals, how to finance those deals, and then how to manage them for great returns. Since we're just launching it, the price will be set at a measly $20 per month, and whatever price you join at is the price you'll have for life. We will be increasing the price as the group grows, so if you're at all interested in growing your portfolio along other investors, now is the time to join. I will put the link somewhere in the bio or on our podcast website at therealestateinvestingclub.com. So if you are interested, head on over there. With that said, let's get back to the podcast.
Sure. So my plan is, the network aspect doesn't end. It's something that, I certainly started really heavily doing, but it continues. It's something you have to continue doing as you build in this space. So definitely I want to get more in person. I think in person is very crucial towards really cementing relationships and finding partners and teams that you can actually work with. So that's really goal one, is to just be more active in person, which is, challenging to do because as opposed to virtual, you have to travel, you have to, take time, be there, it costs money. But again, it's an investment which I think yields tremendous results if you do it right. And the second thing is to find some sort of active role. I feel comfortable enough that I can, give to a team, something that they, something of value. And whatever it is, if it's a JV role, GP role, even if it's something minimal, but to find something that I can have some sort of active role, because I think that's really the goal, to be more active and to be able to be involved in, the actual, property and the whole deal.
Yep, absolutely. And I'm going to take that opportunity to transition us into the quick question round, because one of our questions rolls nicely up into that segue. So are you ready for the quick question round?
Let's do it.
Hell yes. Let's get started. Usually we start with books, but because you just mentioned you're trying to find your fit, I'm going to start with strengths. Each one of us on this planet is gifted with specific strengths that we give to this world. What is your Superman strength?
Sure. So a great question. Everyone, has something to offer. Even if you don't realize it, I think everyone does. And so for me, my professional background is in the construction industry. Been in the
Oops, looks like we're having a little bit of technical difficulties. He's going to come back in 1 second. Aaron, you there?
I'm there. You hear me?
Yep, I hear you. Keep going.
Okay. So sorry about that. So I think my background in the construction industry is really a great fit to help teams, with CapEx, with asset management, and all around, things that come up with properties. I'd love to use that knowledge and experience I have. And so I think that's something I can offer of value. But ultimately, I'd be happy to give value in any aspect I can.
Yep. Understand. It is very, very useful to have that construction side. I'm doing my first new build now, and there's a lot to learn on the construction side for sure. Moving on though, back into the quick question round. We're going to go back to the first question, and this one is education. Book specifically, I'm a big bookie, but if you're not into books, give me 2 recommendations of any form of education. Could be YouTube channels, podcasts, whatever. 2 recommendations, 1 for general life wisdom, 1 for real estate specific.
Sure. I think general thing I'd say is patience, which applies anywhere and everywhere, but certainly in real estate. And I've learned that, firsthand. You want things to happen quickly, and it's always exciting when things happen overnight, quote unquote, whenever that does happen. But patience, and seeing the picture, long term is really important. And I think that's something that I've learned and continue to learn, and is serves me well in any aspect or capacity. That's in general. Specifically with real estate. And this actually rolls into a book I did read, so I'll talk about that for a second, which is actually not a real estate book. I know people have so many great recommendations of, specific, how to be a millionaire book and, how to buy multifamily books, which are all great. But there's a book I read by a guy named Guy Raz, who's an NPR podcast host for a podcast called How I Built This, where he interviews entrepreneurs of all, shapes and sizes. And it's really fascinating insight into what people can do when they just put their mind to it and have a passion to do it. And what that taught me is that you don't need to be, an incredibly smart person or have some, unbelievable skills or will to do things. You just have to have a passion. And that's really what helped me gain that confidence to get involved, and what still propels me to move forward, because it's, you get involved, you see people who have, tremendous success, and sometimes it's hard to visualize yourself in those shoes. What you have to realize is, if you just have that passion, if you just have, if you want to get there, you just need to push, and it's day by day, and eventually you'll see success. And so that book was a catalyst, and it's not a specific real estate thing, but it's very applicable to real estate, and has helped me a lot.
No, I think that is great. It's great wisdom to carry with you. And I've seen it so many times in my own life where you see somebody at a pinnacle and you're like, no way could I ever get there. But the thing is, you don't realize your potential until you actually go through the process. And things
100%.
always seem daunting when you just get started. But if you just keep going forward and allow your own intelligence to kind of work the situation, eventually you're going to be on that mountaintop. So great it. I love it. Moving on. And this one is for the United States. It's a big place. There's a lot of square miles out there, a lot of opportunity to invest. So give me one metro, one city that you are most excited about investing in today.
I'm actually looking into the Georgia market. I think it's an interesting market, which I think it's overlooked a little bit. I was down there a while ago looking at a deal. I think there's a lot of potential there. I know Texas is a hot market, and there's a lot of hot markets, but I think I'm going to be focusing on that. I think there's a lot there that's going on.
Yep, Georgia is hot for sure. The whole southeast down there, Georgia, Florida,
for sure.
Even the Alabamas and the Mississippis are starting to
Carolinas also. Yeah.
Carolinas. Yep. It's all looking good. All right, moving on. This one is tools. Tools form the backbone of our business. I'm sure you have a tool for all the networking you do. So point us to one tool that you could not live without.
So it's really two rolled in one. It's super simple. It's my calendar. which also works with Calendly, which I use, and many people use. But the calendar is like so simple; it almost gets overlooked also. But it just helps me know exactly what I'm doing, and without it, I just get lost. And because you have so many different things going on, meetings and calls and podcasts, interviews, whatever it is, and it keeps me focused on what I have going on. Get it done, cross it off, sort of move on. So super super simple, but super important to just keep your schedule moving.
Hey man, the simple things are the most important. Time is our biggest resource, and the calendar is definitely the best tool for that time. And that leads us to the very last question. I'm sure there's a lot of investors out there, new investors just getting started, that want to reach out and say hi. So what is the best way for them to do that?
Sure. LinkedIn is where you can find me. That's the one social media platform I love to use, which I think has a lot of value. I used to be years ago what they call a LinkedIn lurker. I used to just be in the background, and just watch people. But I love to now be active, comment, talk to people, and meet people through there. And so I'd love to meet more people, and learn from others, and share value and knowledge.
All right. And LinkedIn is Aaron Kreymer, AARON-Kreymer. I will put that link in the show notes. So if you guys want to reach out to Aaron, just click the little more in the description. It'll pull down the full description, and in there you can find his link. So Aaron, that wraps it up. Thank you very much for hopping on the show with us.
Thanks, Gabe. Appreciate it. That was awesome.
Absolutely. And for everybody who's here with us today, thank you guys for showing up. You are the reason we do this. So if you have any questions whatsoever, reach out to me, Gabe at therealestateinvestingclub.com. Other than that, I hope you guys have an absolutely fantastic week. Keep rocking real estate, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode. All right, before I officially sign off, I have a quick announcement to make. If you're interested in becoming a passive investor in one of my deals, my own company, Kaizen Properties, is looking for capital partners for our upcoming projects. We invest in what are known as recession-resistant assets, mainly self-storage facilities, mobile home and RV parks, and industrial properties. If you're interested in investing and would like to learn a little bit more about my company, our investing criteria, and some of the previous projects we've done, go to the Real Estate Investing Club podcast at therealestateinvestingclub.com and scroll all the way down to the bottom of the page. Click on the Invest With Us button. That'll pop up the investor form. Fill that out, and we will reach back out to you as soon as we can. Or if you prefer a little bit more of a personal touch, you can reach out to me at Gabe at therealestateinvestingclub.com. So really, that is it. Again, it was a pleasure hanging out with you guys during this episode, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode.